Hey everybody, my name's Caleb Rothe. I'm the Percussion Education Coordinator for WGI Sport of the Arts, and I'm joined once again by James Catherall. We're doing a little ongoing series here about power and what you need to know to power your ensemble. And in this one, James, I know we're going to talk a little bit about what do we need to do from the lot to the performance to ensure that everything is going to work properly for us on the floor. So dive right in this. What are some of your tips for the folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most important stuff, number one, is I'm always in the lot checking first that everything I'm going to be using in the gym is going to work. Whether it's something that is like part of my lot sequence for my own personal ensemble. Sometimes we don't always have everything set up, whether you have like wireless mics or any other types of mics or speakers or things like that. I'm going to first check in the lot that everything is working, everything is functioning, everything turns on and operates exactly how I want it to. That for me is a main part of that warm up lot time that we get, is just to make sure that all my electronics are functioning properly. Just because we all know that things can happen in transportation when we go from wherever we were to now the performance venue, that things can happen on the truck and things can wiggle around, stuff can happen. So we just want to make sure in the warm-up lot, that's really where we get the most time. You get that whole amount of time to make sure that everything is going to work. So I check it all there in the lot and I make sure that everything's functioning the way that I want it to. And then from there, we are wrapping up all of our cables. That's where I'm going to make sure the cables are wrapped up properly, because that is a huge part of when we get into the gym, is just making sure that all of the cables are wrapped up the way that they should be. Whether that is just doing a cable wrap or getting the cable wheels. I'm a huge fan of the cable wheels, especially for longer cables, can make things a lot easier to make sure I have the cable wheels to be able to go into the performance arena with those. Or just using Velcro ties. I've gotten some larger Velcro ties to make it a little bit easier with some of those big long cable runs. But that's a major part of being in the warm-up lot, is checking all of those things. That's, for me, is a major part of that. And then once we've done that, we're going into the gym and pushing in there for setup. And when we're doing that setup stuff, what I've done beforehand with all of my members is I make sure that whether it's a high school or a top level independent group, that every single member, especially in the front ensemble that's most tasked with getting all of this stuff set up inside of the gym, is that every single member has a job and knows exactly what their job is once we get in there. They know what thing they're plugging in, they know where to go to get it, they know what it plugs into, what it looks like, what color it is. We're color coding cables, all of these things to make sure they know how all that stuff goes. That I should be able to stand in front of my front ensemble and point down the line and say, what is your job? And they say, I push my instrument here, I plug this cable in next to them, I walk to the speaker and plug that cable in over here, and then that's their job. And then we go to the next person, and each one can quickly articulate and also make sure that no one person is carrying way more load than anyone else. We want to be able to divvy that up just so there's no bottlenecks in that setting up process. Once we get into the gym, that one person is tasked with plugging in 10 cables and everyone else is just waiting on that one person. It's trying to make sure that all of that stuff is evenly distributed as much as possible, just so it's all clear and no one walks in there and there's no assumptions of how things work or anything like that. Everyone just knows what their job is. They walk in and they execute that job and everything gets set up. That to me is a really, really important part that I stress a lot during our rehearsals when we practice that stuff, is that everyone knows exactly what their job is and how to make it happen.
I heard a couple of things in that. I heard distribute the jobs and the assignments so that it's somewhat even across the ensemble. Make sure that everybody knows exactly what their job is and fulfills that each time. So consistency, I think, is definitely a huge key for this. I know way back in the day for me, the most hiccups happened when we had randomness and we
Mm-hmm.
had different people doing different things all the time, and that's where problems came from. So consistency is a huge key. And James, I like that you also stressed that when you get to an event, whether it's in the lot or it's when you're unloading the truck or if you're in the hallway, staging your gear and that kind of stuff. It's doing a systems check on everything, trying to get eyes and ears on each part of the system, make sure that it's operating correctly, because things do happen when our gear is rolling to the show in the trucks. Stuff gets loose, cables don't get wound correctly, and so just it's a good chance to do a spot check of all that stuff before we get into the gym or the arena, to make sure everything is ready to go. So James, thank you so much for all of those tips on getting ready and make sure that we're ready to go on the floor. And everybody, thanks for joining us for this one.